In this video, we're going to talk about some of the basic shapes and formulas that you're going to come across in college algebra. I hold you responsible for three basic shapes and the formulas that come out of those shapes. Those shapes are a rectangle, and keep in mind that a square is nothing more than a special rectangle. A triangle. Triangles come in a wide variety of shapes and sizes. And a circle. Okay? Now, I've got some of the formulas I hold you responsible for on the board, or most of the formulas I hold you responsible for on the board. There's a couple up here that I don't hold you responsible for. In other words, if I give you a question on an exam or a quiz and you need to use those formulas, I will give you that formula for that one. But for most of these, I won't give you the formula. Okay? Now, the first shape we're going to talk about, and we need to understand a couple of concepts too. Perimeter. Perimeter is what we mean if you started at one point on a figure, walked on the edge all the way around the figure back to where you started from. It's a measure of how far you walked. Example of perimeter is the amount of baseboard it takes to go around a room, the amount of fence it takes to go around a field. Okay? Perimeter is going to come in units. Think about it. You're going to take a foot plus a foot, or you're going to take a meter plus a meter, a centimeter plus a meter. Whatever your units happen to be, you're just adding those together. You're not multiplying them. Area is a measure of how much stuff it takes to cover something up. Example of area would be like the amount of carpet it takes to cover a room, or the amount of fertilizer or seed it takes to cover a field. Area comes in square units, because most time to get area you're going to take one unit of measure times another unit of measure. You're going to take a foot times a foot, a meter times a meter. Area comes in square units. Volume. Volume is a measure of how much stuff it takes to fill something up, like how much water it takes to fill a container or how much gas it takes to fill a tank. Now, as Americans, we are spoiled in that our units of volume are given to us in terms of gallons and pints and ounces. They're really cubic units. Volume is generally length times width times height, a cubic unit, a foot times a foot times a foot. So mathematically speaking, volume comes in cubic units. All right, now let's talk about these shapes. The first one I'm going to go over with you is a rectangle. Rectangles will have a length and a width. In the perimeter of a rectangle, this is going to be if you start at one point, walk on the edge all the way around it, back to where you started from. If you think about it, you're going to walk 2 units of length and 2 units of width. So you could write this as 2L plus 2W. Area of a rectangle is the length times the width. Now, one of the shapes that comes out of a rectangle is called a cube. And I've tried to draw a 3-dimensional cube on a 2-dimensional board. And cubes are going to have a length and a width and a height. The volume of the cube is going to be the length times the width times height. Keep in mind, perimeter is going to come in units. You're taking a foot plus another foot, a meter plus a meter. Area comes in square units, a length times a width, a foot times a foot, or a meter times a meter. Volume, however, comes in cubic units, a length times a width times a height, a foot times another foot, gives you a cubic foot. The surface area. The surface area of a 3-dimensional shape is a measure of how much stuff it takes to cover that shape up. For example, a cube, you can think of it as a Christmas present. How much wrapping paper would it take to cover that present up? And keep in mind, we don't have any folds or anything like that. So the surface area of the cube, if you stop and think about it, you're going to have a bottom and a top. And so length times the width is the area of the bottom and the top. We multiply that times 2, we get both of them. You're going to have a front and a back. Well, in this example, the length is the length of the front, and this is our height. So the area of this rectangle in the front will be the length times the height. You also have a back, so we multiply that times 2. You're also going to have 2 sides. The area of a side is going to be the width times the height, so that's where 2 at WH is coming from. The second shape I'm going to talk about is a triangle. Triangles are 3-sided figures that are enclosed. One of the things that comes out of them is you generally have a base and you generally have a height. Now, they come in a wide variety of shapes and sizes, and the 2 that I'm concerned with primarily are just basic triangles like this and right triangles. Now, the perimeter of any triangle is simply the sum of the sides, A plus B plus C. I went little a be the length of this side, little b be the length of this side, that's generally called the base, and little c be the length of this side. Now with triangles you have interior angles, so I'm using capital A to be the measure of this interior angle A. And notice that angle A is opposite of side A. And capital C is opposite of side C, capital B, angle B is opposite of side B. One of the basic facts about triangles is the sum of the interior angles is 180 degrees. And also the area of a triangle is going to be the base times the height divided by 2. Also, if you have right triangles, the main thing that we need to worry about with right triangles in this course is the Pythagorean theorem, which says the sum of the squares of the legs is equal to the square of the hypotenuse. In other words, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. A right triangle means that one of the interior angles is 90 degrees. I also want you to notice that the hypotenuse, the longest side, is the side that's opposite 90 degrees. We say that the legs, A and B, are adjacent because they're next to the 90-degree angle. Alright, circles. Well, circles, I'm sure you all know circles, pizzas, pies, some of my favorite desserts and foods come out of circles. A circle is going to have a radius, r, and it's going to have a diameter. The radius is from the center of the circle to the edge, that distance. The diameter goes from one edge to the other edge, but it has to go through the center. There's also a thing called a chord, but we don't really deal with that in this course. A chord is if you go from one edge to the other and you don't necessarily go through the center. The first thing to notice about circles is that if you took 2 times the radius, you get a diameter. Now, circumference. Circumference is, for circles, what perimeter is for rectangles. How long is a circle? If this is a piece of string, how long is that piece of string? Well, for circles, the circumference is 2 pi times the radius, or pi times the diameter. Area of a circle is pi r squared. I always thought pi's were round, but the area of a circle is pi r squared. Now, a shape that comes out of the circle is a right circular cylinder. You've all seen these. It is a beer can, Coke can, that goes perfectly up. Now, a little bit of difference between a Coke can or a beer can is the bottom of those is indented a little bit, and the top has got a little indentation on it. So it's not a pure right circular cylinder. But a right circular cylinder is going to have a radius, and if it's a right circular cylinder, the radius of the top will be the same as the radius of the bottom. This is what I call a simple geometric object because we can find the volume by taking the area of the base and multiplying it times its height. And that is what the volume of a right circular cylinder is. Pi r squared is the area of the base, and we multiply that times the height. Notice that you once again get cubic units. Pi does not have any dimensions. R, when you square it, you get a square foot, square meter, whatever. H, you multiply it times a square foot, square meter, you get a cubic foot, a cubic meter. The surface area of a right circular cylinder, now this is a formula I would give you. I don't need you to memorize this one, but the rest of them we need to have memorized. But the surface area of a right circular cylinder is going to be 2 pi times radius squared plus 2 pi times the radius times the height. And one thing I'm not even going to try and draw on the board is a spear. A spear is like a ball, okay? Now, once again, these are formulas I would give you. I don't expect you to have these memorized, although we could make a case that the volume of the spear is, the spear is a simple geometric object. But the volume of a spear is 4/3 pi r cubed. 4/3 pi r cubed. The area of a spear is 4 pi r squared. Okay? Now, you're going to get into some more complex shapes whenever you do your homework in this unit, and I'm hoping that in the next video I can show you how to handle those complex shapes. Okay? But keep in mind, most all shapes are going to be combinations of the ones I'm giving you. So if you know the ones I'm giving you, these 3 basic shapes, then you can generally come up with what you need to handle these more complex problems. One thing I haven't talked about is trapezoids, but I'm not too worried about those myself. You will see it in your homework though. All right, good luck. Go do some math.